Hey everyone, have you ever felt drained, ignored, or confused by someone you care about, but you just can't put your finger on why? What if it's not random? What if you're stuck in a pattern that's quietly stealing your peace? Today, we're diving into 7 toxic behaviors that psychologist Carl Jung would say you should never tolerate. These are sneaky habits that chip away at your confidence, your identity, and your happiness. Stick around, because by the end, you'll know how to spot them, why you might be attracting them, and how to break free for good. Let's get started. Section 1, the big idea. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate." Translation, if you keep putting up with toxic people, it's not just bad luck, it's your mind repeating old, hidden patterns. These 7 behaviors aren't just annoying, they're soul-crushing. They sneak into your relationships, disguised as love or care, and before you know it, you're doubting yourself, feeling small, or losing who you are. For example, imagine your friend guilt trips you for not texting back fast enough, saying, "I thought you cared." That's manipulation, not friendship. Or picture a partner who ignores your need for space, claiming, "I just want to be close." That's boundary violation, not love. Maybe your boss makes snarky comments like, "Nice try, but you're not that creative." That's subtle criticism, eroding your confidence. These aren't just flaws, they're toxic patterns Jung warned can destroy your sense of self if you don't act. But here's the good news. Once you see them, you can stop them. Let's break down each one. Section 2, the 7 toxic behaviors. 1, emotional manipulation, when love becomes a weapon. Have you ever walked away from a conversation with someone you care about feeling guilty, confused, or even ashamed, without really knowing why? You thought it was a normal interaction, but somehow their words twisted into your heart like a knife. You're not crazy. You might be dealing with emotional manipulation. Emotional manipulation is when someone distorts facts, plays on your emotions, or uses guilt to influence your actions, all under the mask of love, concern, or care. It's subtle, and that's what makes it dangerous. Often, manipulators don't raise their voice or make dramatic threats. Instead, they use kindness as camouflage. Their words sound supportive, but their intent is to control. Carl Jung's insights into the psyche help explain why this is so powerful. He talked about projection, the idea that people often cast their own unresolved issues onto others. In this case, the manipulator might be projecting their fear of rejection, their need to dominate, or their unresolved pain onto you. And if you're not aware, you'll absorb it as your own problem. Here's the tricky part. Manipulators often say things that sound reasonable or even caring. That's the hook. But the outcome is always the same. You feel small, selfish, or unsure of your own truth. Over time, emotional manipulation chips away at your confidence. You begin to question your instincts, and your boundaries become blurry. Let's look at some examples to make this crystal clear. Example 1. I'm only saying this because I care. Imagine you're excited about starting a new career path or moving to a different city. You share this dream with someone close to you, expecting encouragement. Instead, they say, "I'm just worried about you. I don't think you're cut out for that kind of life. I'm only saying this because I care." At first glance, it sounds thoughtful, but what's really happening here? They've planted doubt, questioned your abilities, and made you feel like you're doing something wrong, while hiding behind a mask of care. It's not advice. It's emotional control disguised as concern. Example 2, guilt tripping you into compliance. Let's say you set a boundary. Maybe you need a weekend to yourself to recharge. When you tell them, they respond with, "Wow, after everything I've done for you, you can't even spend one day with me?" That sting in your chest? That's guilt being weaponized. The manipulator isn't respecting your boundary. They're flipping the script to make you feel like a bad person for honoring your own needs. Carl Jung would say this person is projecting their fear of abandonment onto you, making you responsible for managing their emotional insecurity. Example 3, making you feel selfish for having needs. You're feeling emotionally overwhelmed and express that you need more support in the relationship. Instead of listening, they respond, "So now it's all about you? What about everything I'm going through?" Suddenly, Your valid need becomes an attack in their eyes. You start second-guessing yourself. Am I really being too needy? Am I selfish? This tactic deflects accountability and keeps you stuck in self-doubt. It's manipulation, not partnership. How to recognize and respond. Recognizing emotional manipulation requires tuning in to your emotional responses, not just the words being said. Ask yourself, do I feel guilty after asking for what I need? Do I often end up apologizing, even when I haven't done anything wrong? Do I feel like I'm constantly explaining myself to someone who never really listens? If the answer is yes, it's time to step back. Start by trusting your instincts. Manipulators count on your self-doubt. So rebuilding your trust in your own feelings is a first step toward freedom. Jung believed that awareness is the beginning of transformation. When you shine a light on the unconscious patterns at play, both yours and others, you reclaim your power. Emotional manipulation loses its grip when you stop reacting from guilt and start responding from self-respect. 2. Ignoring your boundaries when closeness becomes control. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They're doors that allow healthy, respectful connection. But when someone consistently ignores your boundaries, they're not trying to be close to you. They're trying to control you. This behavior is deeply toxic, even if it's disguised as affection, spontaneity, or emotional intensity. Carl Jung emphasized that establishing and honoring boundaries is essential for personal development. He believed boundaries protect your individual self, allow your true identity to emerge without being absorbed or dominated by others. When someone refuses to respect those boundaries, what they're really saying is, your needs don't matter, mine do. At first, boundary violations might seem harmless, maybe even flattering. They text you all the time. They want to see you every day. They say things like, I just miss you so much, or you're my whole world. But over time, that constant contact becomes pressure. Your space shrinks. Your freedom fades. And you begin to feel like you're responsible for their emotional stability. Let's break this down with 3 examples to see how this behavior shows up in everyday life. Example 1, the uninvited guest. You've had a long, exhausting week. You finally get a night to yourself, just you, a blanket, and your favorite book. Suddenly, your phone buzzes. I'm outside, smiley face, surprise. You didn't invite them. You didn't say it was okay to come over. But here they are, smiling, acting like it's romantic or sweet. When you gently express that you needed alone time, they reply, wow, I guess I'm not that important to you after all. This is not love, it's boundary violation. They've turned your need for rest into an insult. Instead of respecting your space, they've made you feel guilty for protecting it. Jung would say this is a symptom of someone who cannot tolerate being separate from others because they haven't developed a strong sense of self. So they try to merge with you, control your time, and blur your personal lines. Example 2, the text storm. You're in a meeting or spending time with family, and your phone is blowing up message after message, missed calls, voice notes. When you finally check in and say, hey, I was busy, I'll respond later, the reply comes fast and sharp. If you really cared, you'd find time. This isn't about love or communication. It's about control. Healthy people respect pauses. Unhealthy ones treat your silence as rejection and demand constant access to your attention. They don't just want to talk, they want to own your availability. And when they don't get it, they punish you emotionally or act hurt. Jung would call this an unconscious attempt to avoid abandonment by overpowering your autonomy. Example 3, the guilt-laced favor. You say no to something, maybe helping with a last-minute project, lending money, or attending an event you're not comfortable with. Their response? I just thought I could count on you. Guess I was wrong. This kind of manipulation is quiet, but deeply violating. You're made to feel like a bad person for saying no. But what's really happening is a boundary test, and you failed, in their eyes, by not giving them what they wanted. They don't ask, they expect. And when you don't deliver, they use guilt to bring you back in line. How to reclaim your space. If someone repeatedly ignores your boundaries, it's not a misunderstanding. It's a message. They're showing you that their comfort is more important than your well-being. But here's the truth. Your space is sacred. You don't owe anyone constant access to your time, your body, or your energy. Start by identifying your boundaries. Ask yourself, what makes me feel drained? When do I feel violated or unsafe? What am I saying yes to out of fear, not choice? Then communicate clearly and confidently. Use direct, respectful language like, I'm not available tonight and I need some time alone. Please don't show up without asking. I'm not comfortable with that and I won't be doing it. You don't have to justify or explain. A boundary is not a request. It's a statement of self-respect. Carl Jung believed that growth happens when we differentiate ourselves from others. That means being clear about who you are, what you value, and what you won't tolerate. People who ignore your boundaries don't want a relationship. They want control. But you're not here to be controlled. You're here to live, grow, and be free. Free. Passive-aggressive games, silent weapons that wound deeply. Passive-aggressive behavior is one of the most frustrating and confusing forms of emotional manipulation. It's subtle, indirect, and often cloaked in sarcasm, silence, or fake politeness. Unlike open conflict, which at least gives you something to address, passive aggression is like fighting smoke. It leaves you hurt, but you can't quite grab hold of what's wrong. Carl Jung called these behaviors shadow expressions, parts of ourselves that we suppress or deny, which then leak out in unhealthy, underhanded ways. A person who can't express anger or insecurity directly may instead act out through guilt-tripping, sarcasm, or deliberate neglect. It's not just immature, it's toxic because it erodes trust and emotional safety in any relationship. Here's the thing. Passive-aggressive people often pretend nothing is wrong, while their tone, actions, or behavior scream otherwise. They might deny being upset, but punish you anyway. They may not yell, but their words cut just as deep. Let's look at 3 clear examples. Example 1. The cold shoulder. You forget to reply to a text or cancel plans at the last minute. You send a sincere apology and try to reconnect. Their response? Silence. No reply. Just nothing. For days. When you finally reach out again, they act like nothing happened. Or worse, say something like, "Oh, I've just been really busy. I figured you had more important things going on anyway." This is emotional punishment. Instead of talking about their feelings like an adult, they use silence to control the relationship dynamic. You're left anxious, confused, and desperate to make it right, even when you've done nothing wrong. Jung would call this behavior a projection of repressed anger. Because they can't express it healthily, they withdraw love and attention to make you pay. Example 2. Sarcasm is a sword. You share something you're proud of, a new job, a creative project, a fitness milestone. Instead of celebrating with you, they smile and say, "Wow, you're basically famous now, huh?" Or, "Must be nice to have all that free time to work on yourself." At first glance, it might seem like a joke, but under the surface, there's resentment or envy. They won't say they're uncomfortable with your success. They'll mock it instead. This form of sarcastic undermining leaves you second-guessing yourself. Was it too much to share? Did you sound arrogant? But here's the truth. The sarcasm isn't about you. It's about them. They feel small next to your growth, and instead of looking inward, they project that insecurity outward, masked as humor. Example 3. The nice guilt trip. You say you can't make it to an event or help with something they asked. You got your own life to handle, and you communicate it kindly. Their reply? "Oh, no worries at all. I didn't really expect you to show up anyway." Or, "It's fine. I'll just figure it out myself. I always do." This response seems polite, even accommodating, but the tone carries an edge. The message isn't, "I understand." It's, "You let me down, and I want you to feel bad about it." This kind of passive-aggressive guilt trip keeps the blame off their hands while still triggering your emotional responsibility. Over time, these patterns condition you to overextend yourself, say yes when you want to say no, and constantly walk on eggshells to avoid their unspoken disapproval. How to handle passive-aggressive behavior. Dealing with passive aggression requires clarity, courage, and emotional maturity. First, don't play the game. The whole point of passive-aggressive tactics is to get you to react without the other person taking responsibility. Don't bite the bait. Stay grounded. Second, call it out gently but directly. You might say, It seems like you're upset, but I'd rather talk about it openly than guess how you're feeling. That joke felt more like a dig than humor. Can we talk honestly about what's going on? If you're disappointed, I prefer you tell me directly rather than hinting. This does two things. It sets a boundary, and it puts the emotional accountability back where it belongs, on them. Lastly, understand that passive aggression is often a defense mechanism, but that doesn't mean you have to tolerate it. Carl Jung believed that true growth comes from integrating the parts of ourselves we suppress. That's what makes a relationship healthy, both people being honest, even when it's uncomfortable. You deserve relationships where you don't have to decode feelings or fear punishment for setting boundaries. You deserve clarity, not confusion. Choose people who talk with you, not around you. For playing the victim when responsibility becomes a weapon. In healthy relationships, people take responsibility for their actions. They apologize when they're wrong, make amends, and grow. But with someone who constantly plays the victim, that accountability is nowhere to be found. Instead, they rewrite reality to always appear wounded, no matter what actually happened. Carl Jung warned about this dynamic. He believed that people who haven't confronted their shadow often use suffering as a disguise for manipulation. They appear helpless, but they're actually very powerful because they control you through guilt, sympathy, and confusion. Over time, you start to doubt yourself. You apologize for things you didn't do. You carry their pain like it's your fault. The victim mask is especially dangerous because it hides behind emotion. It's not loud like anger. It's subtle, like a whimper, but it can control your life just as strongly. Let's explore 3 common ways this shows up. Example 1. They hurt you, but you're the one saying sorry. Imagine this. During an argument, they raise their voice, insult you, maybe even curse. You stay calm, express your boundaries, and try to de-escalate. Later, instead of owning their behavior, they say, "I was just so overwhelmed. I've been under so much stress. I didn't mean it." Then they add, "Honestly, you know how sensitive I am. I felt attacked." Suddenly, you find yourself comforting them, even though you were the one who was mistreated. You start to think, maybe I did push too hard, or maybe I shouldn't have brought it up. This is emotional reversal. They violated a boundary, but now you feel like the villain. Jung would say this is a classic projection. They can't handle their own flaws, so they cast themselves as the victim and make you carry the burden of their behavior. Example 2. Chaos follows them, but it's never their fault. Some people seem to be surrounded by constant drama. Falling outs with friends, toxic work environments, broken relationships, missed deadlines. But if you ask them about it, they always have a reason, and it's never them. My boss is just jealous of me. People always take advantage of me. Nobody appreciates how much I do. It's a repeating pattern. And anytime you try to help them reflect or take ownership, they shut down or get offended. You don't understand what I've been through. I thought you were on my side. This is classic victim positioning. It keeps them in a place where they don't have to grow, change, or admit fault. And if you keep trying to support them, you risk becoming their emotional caretaker instead of their equal. Example 3. Guilt as a manipulation tool. You set a boundary. Maybe you say no to lending money, cancel plan to take care of yourself, or don't answer phone right away. Instead of respecting that, they react with phrases like, "It's fine. I know you have more important people in your life. I guess I just care more than you do. Don't worry about me. I'm used to being alone." They may not yell, but their words are loaded. You suddenly feel bad, ashamed, like you did something wrong just by protecting your peace. This is emotional blackmail in soft language. It's not about getting support. It's about controlling you through guilt. Jung believed that those who play the victim avoid transformation. They stay in a loop of pain because it gives them power without requiring growth. How to respond to the perpetual victim? First, understand that someone's pain doesn't excuse their manipulation. You can have compassion without surrendering your boundaries. If they're always the victim, that means they're not growing. And if you're always a rescuer, neither are you. Here's what you can do. Don't over-explain. When you say no, let it be enough. You're not responsible for managing their disappointment. Reflect, Don't rescue. Instead of fixing things, try, "That sounds tough. What do you think you'll do about it?" This subtly hands the responsibility back where it belongs. Name the pattern, if safe to do so. "I notice when things go wrong. You often blame others. Can we talk about that?" Most importantly, don't confuse guilt with love. Someone who truly cares about you won't want to trap you in shame just to avoid facing themselves. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. That includes casting themselves as the eternal victim. But your job isn't to be their savior. Your job is to live in truth. And sometimes that truth means walking away." 5. Subtle criticism, when little comments cut deep. Subtle criticism is like a slow poison. It doesn't wound you outright like open insults, but over time, it chips away at your confidence, your self-image, and your ability to trust your own instincts. These are the offhand remarks, the jokes, the backhanded compliments that leave you feeling small, but unsure why. Carl Jung believed that this kind of emotional erosion often stems from unhealed wounds. People project their own self-doubt or envy onto others. But instead of owning those feelings, they deliver them through disguised digs. It's the shadow side of communication. Indirect, vague, and deeply damaging. The worst part, because it's so subtle, you end up questioning yourself. Am I being too sensitive? Maybe they're just trying to help. I'm overreacting, right? But you're not overreacting. You're feeling the effects of manipulation wrapped in politeness. Let's unpack how this plays out with 3 common examples. Example 1. "I was just joking." You finally express a creative idea at work or among friends. Maybe you share your thoughts confidently, proud of stepping out of your shell, and someone responds with, "Well, that's one way to do it. Bold choice." Or worse, "Haha, wow, that's so you." You laugh along awkwardly, but something in your gut twists when you bring it up later, maybe saying, "Hey, that comment felt kind of dismissive." They quickly respond, "Oh my God, lighten up. I was just joking." This is mockery disguised as humor. It invalidates your feelings and positions you as a problem for reacting, not them for saying something hurtful. Over time, you may stop speaking up altogether, fearing you'll be ridiculed again. Jung would call this a projection of inferiority. The person making the joke may feel small inside and uses sarcasm to knock others down to their level, all while pretending it's harmless. Example 2. You're too sensitive. Let's say you confront someone for being a bit harsh or negative. Maybe they've said something that hurt, and you express it calmly. Their response? "Wow, you really take everything personally." Or, "You're so emotional all the time." This is a classic deflection. Instead of addressing your concern, they flip the narrative so you become the problem. Your emotional awareness is turned into a flaw. But here's the truth. You're not too sensitive. You're tuned in. Your ability to feel discomfort when someone crosses a line is a strength, not a weakness. People who want to control others often use this tactic to avoid accountability. Jung believed that many of us grow up in environments where emotional expression is punished. As adults, we unconsciously seek out relationships that repeat those dynamics, even if they hurt. Recognizing this pattern is the first step to breaking it. Example 3. "I'm just trying to help." Imagine someone close to you, maybe a partner, parent, or friend, constantly offering advice you didn't ask for. You wear something new and they say, "Are you sure that flatters your figure?" Or, "If you lost just a little weight, you'd look amazing." When you express discomfort, they respond with, "I'm just trying to help." You're so defensive. This is criticism disguised as care. It's not support, it's control. It plants seeds of self-doubt under the mask of concern. Over time, you may stop trusting your own judgment about your looks, your choices, even your worth. These kinds of remarks often come from people who criticize themselves. Instead of healing, they pass that pain on under the illusion of being honest or helpful. But honesty without kindness isn't love, it's cruelty. How to defend yourself from subtle criticism. Dealing with subtle critics takes clarity and courage. Here's what helps. Trust your gut. If a comment stings, Don't brush it off just because it was said with a smile. Emotional pain is still real, even if it's not loud. Name the behavior. Calmly say, "That felt more like a dig than a joke. I appreciate feedback, but I didn't ask for that. Please don't comment on my appearance. It's not helpful." Set clear boundaries. You don't have to explain, justify, or defend your limits. If someone keeps crossing the line, distance is a valid response. Remember who you are. Subtle criticism can chip away at your self-esteem, but you don't have to accept someone else's narrative. Jung believed that healing happens when we reclaim our truth, even if others can't handle it. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are simply not willing to tolerate small cuts that lead to deep wounds. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. 6. Stealing your energy when helping turns into draining. You know the feeling. You get off the phone with someone or leave a conversation, and instead of feeling connected or inspired, you feel tired, depleted, maybe even irritated without knowing why. That's not a coincidence. That's emotional energy theft. Carl Jung referred to these people as psychic vampires, not in a spooky supernatural way, but in a very real emotional sense. They don't respect boundaries, don't reciprocate support, and subtly make you responsible for their emotional well-being. Over time, being around them feels like a full-time job, except you're not getting paid and you're the one burning out. What makes this tricky is that these energy stealers don't always look toxic on the surface. They often appear needy, harmless, or even sweet. But don't be fooled. Draining people can wear 1,000 masks. What they have in common is this: they leave you feeling less whole after every interaction. Let's look at how this plays out through 3 common scenarios. Example 1, the never-ending crisis. You have a friend or relative who always has something going wrong. A bad breakup, a job that's toxic, a betrayal by someone they never saw coming. And you want to be there, you care. But every time you offer advice or a possible solution, they shoot it down with, "Yeah, but that wouldn't work for me. I already tried that. It made it worse." You just don't understand how hard it is. They don't actually want help. What they want is your constant presence, your emotional labor, and your sympathy again and again. You end up staying on the phone for hours, replaying the same story, feeling more helpless each time. This is emotional dumping, not emotional sharing. Jung might say they're outsourcing their shadow. They don't want to deal with their pain alone, so they hand it off to you. But the result? Your tank runs empty while theirs never gets filled. Example 2. Can you just type? This person always needs a small favor. A ride, a quick review of their resume, help moving, a last-minute loan. And the way they ask, it always sounds harmless. "Can you just take a quick look? It'll only take a minute. You're so good at this. I wish I had your energy." They flatter you while pulling from you. And it's never just once. It becomes a pattern where they rely on your time, skills, or emotional presence without ever asking how you're doing. At first, you might feel flattered or helpful, but eventually resentment builds. Why? Because true connection involves reciprocity, not constant taking. Jung believed that people who avoid doing their inner work often rely on others to carry their emotional or practical burdens. If you're the capable one, you're especially at risk of being targeted by these types. Example 3, the guilt tripper. You say no. You take time for yourself. You set a boundary. And suddenly, this person becomes distant or passive-aggressive. "Oh, okay. I just thought we were closer than that. I would have done it for you, but I guess that's just me. Wow, didn't think you'd turn your back like that." Now you feel bad. You start second-guessing your choice. Maybe you cancel your plans or change your mind just to make peace. This is manipulation through guilt, and it's one of the most exhausting forms of energy theft. Because it doesn't just take your time, it takes your peace, your confidence, and your freedom to choose how to protect your energy without feeling like the villain. Here's the truth. Your energy is sacred. You don't owe it to anyone just because they ask for it nicely or repeatedly. Wanting to help is noble, but allowing yourself to be drained isn't compassion. It's self-abandonment. Here's what helps. Check in with your body. After time with this person, Do you feel lighter or heavier, energized or exhausted? Your nervous system often knows what your mind hasn't admitted yet. Say no without explanation. You don't need to justify or soften every no. A simple, "I'm not available for that, but I hope things work out," is enough. Set time limits. "Hey, I've got 15 minutes to chat. What's up?" That way, you're not locked into hours of draining conversation. Notice if there's a pattern. If someone only reaches out when they need something, they're not building a relationship. They're building a dependency. And that's not your job to maintain. Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Many people don't do their own healing because it's hard, but you are not responsible for doing it for them. You can love someone and still say, "This is too much for me right now." Protecting your energy is not selfish. It's survival. And when you preserve your strength, you can show up more powerfully in the spaces where your love is truly appreciated. 7. Hot and cold behavior. The emotional roller coaster you didn't sign up for. Hot and cold behavior is one of the most confusing and addictive forms of emotional manipulation. One moment, someone showers you with love, affection, attention. You feel on top of the world. The next, they go silent, distant, cold. You're left wondering what you did wrong. This pattern is especially dangerous because it mimics emotional intimacy while actually creating emotional instability. The highs feel euphoric. The lows feel unbearable. And you get hooked, not on the person, but on trying to win back the version of them you once had. Carl Jung believed that emotional inconsistency often stems from internal chaos. People who haven't made peace with themselves swing between extremes in their relationships. Their love is impulsive, not grounded, and you become collateral damage in their inner war. Let's break this down with 3 common examples. Example 1, the sudden switch. You're texting back and forth with someone you're dating. Everything feels great. They're responsive, engaged, maybe even say things like, "I've never felt this close to anyone before." You're so easy to talk to. It's scary how well we connect. Then nothing. No text for a day, 2 days. When they finally reply, it's cold, dry, or even defensive. You ask if something's wrong and get a vague answer. "I've just been busy." You're overthinking it. You spiral. Did you say something wrong? Did you come on too strong? You begin to doubt yourself. This is the classic push-pull dynamic. When someone is emotionally immature or fearful of intimacy, they come close when they crave connection, then pull away when vulnerability makes them uncomfortable. You're left chasing the closeness while trying to avoid being too much. Example 2, reward and punishment. Maybe this person becomes incredibly loving and affectionate when you meet their needs, but turns cold or passive-aggressive the moment you assert your own. For example, you cancel a plan because you're exhausted. Suddenly, they don't talk to you for a day. You say no to something they wanted, and they respond with, "Fine, do whatever you want." Cue emotional shutdown. This isn't random. It's behavioral conditioning. You're being trained to associate standing up for yourself with emotional withdrawal. Over time, you may start silencing your own needs just to avoid their coldness. Jung would say, this is a shadow at play again. The person might be unaware they're manipulating you. They're simply repeating patterns they've internalized from their past. But your nervous system still pays a price. Example 3, the love bomb and freeze cycle. This one is especially common in toxic romantic dynamics. At the beginning, they sweep you off your feet. You're everything I've ever wanted. I've never felt this way about anyone. They text you constantly, compliment you, make plans for the future. You feel chosen, special, seen. Then, out of nowhere, they cool down. They cancel dates. They stop initiating contact. You're left confused and anxious. This isn't just emotional inconsistency. It's manipulative emotional baiting. They hook you with intensity, then disappear to make you chase them. It creates a power imbalance, and you end up addicted to breadcrumbs, always hoping the sweet version will return. How to break free from a hot and cold trap. Breaking out of this dynamic isn't easy, because part of you is chasing the version of them who once made you feel amazing. But the truth is, emotional inconsistency is not love. It's emotional neglect with a twist of charm. Here's how to protect yourself. Stop rationalizing their coldness. Saying things like maybe they're just bad at texting or they have a lot going on only delays the truth. Consistent people don't leave you guessing. Observe the pattern, not the apology. Do they actually change? Or do they just say, sorry, I've been in a weird headspace, and then repeat the cycle? Don't confuse intensity with intimacy. Love that comes in waves and crashes isn't romantic, it's unstable. Healthy relationships are consistent, boring even, and that's a good thing. Practice detachment. When they pull away, don't panic. Don't chase. Instead, pause and ask, is this the type of love I want to keep investing in? Jung believed that healing requires bringing the unconscious to light. If you find yourself repeatedly drawn to hot and cold people, there's a reason. Maybe one parent was emotionally unavailable. Maybe inconsistency feels familiar, but that doesn't mean it's healthy or that you have to keep reliving it. Hot and cold behavior is a sign of emotional immaturity, not depth. You deserve love that shows up, not love that disappears and expects applause when it returns. And the moment you stop accepting crumbs is the moment you start building something whole, something real, with yourself or someone truly capable of showing up. Section 3. Why this happens. The shadow behind pattern. You probably ask yourself, why do I keep ending up with people like this? Those who manipulate, disrespect boundaries, criticize you subtly, or disappear emotionally. It's not just bad luck, and it's not because you're broken. There's something deeper at work, and Carl Jung had a powerful explanation for it. Jung believed that the parts of ourselves we don't accept, our pain, fears, insecurities, and past wounds, don't just disappear. They get buried in what he called the shadow, the unconscious layer of our psyche. And here's the kicker. The shadow doesn't stay quiet. It finds a way to act out, often through our relationships. We attract what we haven't healed. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In other words, the relationships that hurt us the most often reflect parts of ourselves we haven't faced. Let's say you grew up with a parent who was emotionally unavailable, unpredictable, or critical. You might have learned that love equals anxiety, that being on edge, trying harder, or earning affection is normal. So as an adult, when you meet someone who gives you mixed signals or makes you prove your worth, something familiar clicks, even if it's painful. This isn't conscious. You're not choosing bad people on purpose. Your nervous system is just drawn to what it knows. Your unconscious is saying, this feels like home. But not all homes are healthy. The mirror effect. People reflect what's inside us. Here's the hardest truth Jung offers. The toxic people in our lives can be mirrors. They reflect the parts of ourselves we haven't fully claimed or protected. You tolerate emotional manipulation because you haven't yet learned to trust your own voice. You excuse boundary breaking because you still believe people-pleasing is safer than being abandoned. You stay in hot and cold dynamics because part of you is afraid that consistent love won't feel as intense or validating. None of this makes you weak. It makes you human, and it's not your fault. These patterns were usually wired into you during childhood, long before you had the tools or awareness to change them. But now, you have the choice to wake up. The role of the shadow self. Jung's idea of the shadow self isn't about being bad or dark. It's about the parts of ourselves we hide. That might include fear of being rejected, shame for needing too much, guilt around saying no, anger we never allowed ourselves to express. When we suppress these feelings, they don't go away. They leak into our relationships. The people who trigger us most are often highlighting something in us we've disowned. That manipulative friend, they might reflect the part of you that struggles to say what you really want. That critical partner, maybe they echo the voice in your own head that says you're not enough. But this isn't about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming your power, individuation, becoming whole again. Jung believed the goal of inner work is individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating your shadow, not fixing yourself, not becoming perfect, but embracing all of who you are, so you're no longer ruled by unconscious patterns. When you face your wounds, your past, and your fears directly, something shifts. You stop attracting people who reflect your pain and start drawing those who match your healing. It begins with simple awareness. Instead of asking, why are they doing this to me? Ask, what in me allows this to continue? Instead of thinking, maybe I'm too sensitive, consider, maybe I'm finally noticing what hurts. Instead of chasing love, start giving yourself the validation you've been begging others for. This is the real inner transformation Jung spoke of. And it's not quick or easy, but it's liberating. The good news? You can break the pattern. Once you recognize that these toxic dynamics aren't random, that they're rooted in your unconscious, you get to interrupt the cycle. You can begin to set clearer boundaries without guilt. Say no without explaining yourself. See red flags not as mysteries to fix, but as signals to walk away. Attract people who treat your energy as sacred, not as something to consume. Most importantly, you start choosing yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a soul-honoring way. We don't break free from toxic people by fixing them. We break free by facing the parts of us that kept choosing them, and choosing differently. Awareness is the first step. Self-compassion is the second, and conscious action is the third. Jung would remind you, you are not what has happened to you. You are what you choose to become. And you're becoming someone who sees clearly, feels deeply, and no longer sacrifices their peace for temporary love. Section 4. How to break free from survival to sovereignty. By now, you've probably recognized at least one toxic pattern that's touched your life. Maybe it's emotional manipulation. Maybe it's the inconsistency, the criticism, or the way someone drains your energy without ever giving back. And maybe, just maybe, you've started to wonder, what if I deserve more than this? Carl Jung taught that awareness is the key that unlocks transformation. But awareness alone isn't enough. It must be followed by action. And not just any action, conscious, intentional, and courageous action. Because breaking free from these patterns doesn't just heal your relationships, it rewires your relationship with yourself. Let's walk through 3 powerful steps to reclaim your peace, your power, and your purpose. Step 1. Radical self-awareness. Turn the light inward. The first step isn't confrontation. It isn't revenge. It's reflection. Jung believed that the unconscious mind drives our behavior until we shine a light on it. That means if you want to stop attracting toxic people, you have to ask yourself some uncomfortable but transformative questions. Where have I ignored my own intuition? When did I start believing that love meant self-abandonment? What do I keep tolerating that my younger self would have cried over? This is where journaling, therapy, and mindfulness practices become sacred tools. You're not just documenting your pain, you're decoding it. You're pulling threads from the past and watching how they've been woven into your present. And in doing so, you create space for something new. Try this. Next time you feel small around someone, don't react. Observe. Breathe. Write down what you're feeling, where in your body you feel it, and what story your mind is telling you about it. That's your shadow speaking, and you're listening now. Step 2. Set sacred boundaries and let them be non-negotiable. Here's the truth. Toxic people don't respect soft boundaries. They test them, push them, walk right through them if you don't enforce them. That's why boundaries aren't just about saying no. They're about saying yes to your self-worth. Jung emphasized that the path to individuation, the journey of becoming whole, requires drawing a line between the self and the other. When you set boundaries, you're declaring, I know who I am, I know what I will allow, and I no longer need to suffer to feel loved. This isn't about building walls. It's about building doors with locks and deciding who gets a key. Try this. Practice saying things like, I'm not available for that kind of conversation. I care about you, but I need space to think. I'm allowed to protect my peace, even if it disappoints you. Yes, it'll feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to being the peacemaker. But discomfort is part of the detox. Step 3, rewire with action. Don't just heal, choose differently. This is a step that most people avoid because it requires change. And change means loss. Loss of familiarity, loss of approval, sometimes even loss of people we once loved. But here's what Jung knew. You cannot become your true self while staying loyal to your wounds. You have to let go of identities and dynamics that were built on survival, not authenticity. So, choose differently. Stop texting the person who makes you question your worth. Leave the room when someone uses sarcasm to cut you down. Say no without over-explaining. Choose the boring, stable friend over the charismatic one who never shows up. Try this. Each time you act differently, each time you protect your peace instead of chasing connection, you're rewiring your nervous system. You're teaching yourself, I am safe, I am worthy. I do not need to earn love by sacrificing myself. And that is real freedom. Bonus step. Anchor yourself in self-compassion. Breaking free is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. There will be days when you fall back into old habits. Days when you miss the person who hurt you. Days when silence feels lonelier than the chaos you used to feel. That's okay. Jung reminded us that transformation isn't linear. It's a spiral. You return to the same places, but each time with more awareness, more strength, more truth. So be kind to yourself. If you find yourself slipping into a toxic dynamic, pause. Don't shame yourself. Don't collapse. Just say, I see what's happening. I know why I chose this before, and now I choose something new. That's power. That's healing. That's individuation. The bottom line, you were never meant to shrink. You weren't born to tolerate, to explain, to endure love that feels like confusion. You were born to expand, to create, to experience love that nourishes, not depletes. Carl Jung would say the path to wholeness begins when you stop chasing others and start returning to yourself. So ask yourself right now, what's one toxic behavior I'm no longer willing to tolerate? What's one boundary I will honor, even if my voice shakes? What version of myself am I ready to become? Starting today, you don't need permission to protect your peace. You just need to remember that you're worth the effort, the space, and the love you've been trying to give everyone else. Call to action. Tolerating these behaviors doesn't just hurt your relationships, it dims your light. Jung believed you can rewrite your story by choosing awareness and courage. So, what's one toxic behavior you're done with? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear. If this hit home, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more videos on leveling up your life with psychology. You're not too sensitive. You're not too much. You're enough. Let's keep growing together. See you in the next one.